someone just got smarter. Here's your look at the new NECA toys. Gremlins 2, the new batch. Ultimate Brain Gremlin. Any fan of the Gremlins movies knows the rules. Keep them out of sunlight, don't get them wet, and never feed them after midnight. Break them and add some of Dr. Catheter's brain serum and you end up with the brain. From the sequel movie Gremlins 2, the new batch, this fully articulated 7-inch scale figure stands 6 inches tall and features a tailored fabric suit. Brain Gremlin comes with a pipe, syringe, brain serum, and interchangeable hands. Before we get a closer look at the brain, let's go ahead first and figure out how tall the figure stands. I end up grabbing this over on Entertainment Earth's website, so if you guys are interested, windshield wipering my way out of the way for a second. If you are interested, I'll provide the link down below in the video description. In the meantime, though, brain stands at about 6 inches in height, and the figure's roughly about 15 centimeters tall. Figured for other figure comparisons, we would bring in the other Gremlins 2, the new batch figures from NECA Toys. So here's what Brain looks like along with Combat Gizmo, who in this case only goes to about the waist of Brain. Here's what the figure looks like along with Greta. And a couple of figures we haven't brought in for, man, I don't know how many years already. We're going to bring in some of the earlier Gremlins 2, the new batch Gremlin figures. So there's what he looks like next to Daffy. Here's what he looks like next to George, and freeing up hopefully enough space. Here's what he looks like next to creepy-looking Lemmy. Lemmy's a little bit loose in the ankles, but there you go. You get a good feel, a good vibe for how well, actually, Brain fits in well with the rest of these figures. Now, Brain is going to be a little bit more limited in the articulation side of things, but really, when we've looked at all of the Gremlins to the new batch, Gremlins at least, not the Mogwais, but the Gremlins, they all sort of have had much more limited articulation than, say, the Ultimate Gremlins that we've looked at earlier. On to Brain's accessories now. First of which, the figure comes included with a beaker of Brain serum. Luckily, you don't have to require reading the label down below, because if a doctor has filled this out, the chicken scratches that you generally get with any prescription note that a doctor has made, good luck trying to read that. I commend pharmacists for being able to actually read, make out any bit of the wording that doctors usually put on those memo notes. Have you ever tried to read a prescription note by a doctor? It looks like you've given it to a panicked chicken and chased it across a piece of paper. Anyways, at least one thing you'll know by looking at the fact that it's a brain image on the front, it has something to do with the brain. If you're just randomly grabbing canisters and beakers off of a shelf to down them, first of all, don't do that. But if anything, grab at least the one that has the brain on the front. Don't grab the one that has the picture of the spider. Bad things happen when you drink the vial that has the spider on the front of it. This looks like a case where they've actually taken probably a shell of clear plastic and sandwiched it over top of a much darker forest green plastic on the inside. This does fit into Brain's hands. I'll show you guys that also in a second. Figure also comes included with a syringe. The nice thing about the syringe is that you can actually pull it back. Though pulling it too far back, you can see, you can remove it complete with the colored not liquid in this case, but what they've done is they've actually just colored the tip of the clear plastic tubing that slides back into the syringe. Again, this fits into his hand as well. The figure also comes included with a pipe. The pipe can be fit into his hand, although it's a little bit harder because the sizing of the pipe. And I think this can also fit well in his mouth, but you sort of have to kind of move things around, navigate it around his teeth before you finally, well, we'll do it. We'll do it in a second. And then, of course, as we've already talked about, the figure comes included with a couple of swappable hands. As it stands right now, he has the stock hands that I think most of the Gremlins have usually come included with. One that's slightly more of a closed fist, and then one that's more of a relaxed hand. But, for example, if you did want to change out with any, well, I say any one of the hands, there's only another pair of hands to work with. Simply just hold on to the forearm and just wiggle it and remove it from the post. Go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side. There we go. And we'll put Brain down just for a second, completely absent of his hands. These are the other hands he comes included with also as well. I mean, really, to look at this, it's basically just the mirror flip, it seems, of this hand. It's just simply on this side. But, you know, if you want to have two gripping hands, you can also do that as well. But for the sake of this, you can take the vial, and the vial doesn't really fit into this hand. However, it does fit very nicely into the hand that we're about to swap things out for. Simply just pry the fingers away from the palm, And yeah, actually, you could even have it to the point where the brain is tipping the vial up, about to drink it. The hands also work well for the syringe. For the syringe, I would find it's easy not to put it down this way, but instead, if you take the syringe and sort of just feed it up the middle, just continue on its way and just fit it through the fingers. And the syringe stays perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. You can also follow that same formula when it comes to him holding his pipe. Just take, first of all, the syringe out of his hand. Take the pipe, and the pipe sort of just wedges in between his fingers. But again, it's more than enough. I mean, that's all you really need for him to hold any one of those accessories. Let's go ahead, put those hands back in, because it just seems so strange without him having proper hands. And I may have actually just swapped the hands back the opposite way. Because again, like, you have this hand that's just a mirror flip to this, and then you literally just have this hand on the other hand, a mirror flip to that as well. So it's just up to you as to how you want to have it. Oh, right. We were also going to talk a little bit about the pipe in his mouth. So, like, with his mouth, there's really no dedicated place to hold the pipe. You literally, like, there's just a gap. There's just a gap between the top and the bottom of his gummy teeth. So some pretty gummy looking teeth. You just literally take the pipe and slot it in anywhere really that you find a place in between his teeth. You want to do it on this side? Sure, yeah, you can do it on this side as well. Although I think it actually fits the best on this side, but if you're insistent that I have it on this side, yeah, you can do that also as well. Put that to the side. Figure also comes included with a pair of glasses, a pair of spectacles. Now, the thing about the glasses is that they seem to be permanently glued to the tops of his ears. I wouldn't doubt the fact that you probably could be able to pry this off of his head. The only thing about it, though, is once you pry this off and remove the glue, the adhesive footing that it has, I don't think the glasses are going to stay properly in place anyways. Plus, too, I think it completes the look of having Brain with the glasses anyways. Why, oh why, would you even want to remove it in the first place? I mean, again, there's a little bit of dollop of glue on both the sides. And that makes up his accessories. That's it. That's all you're going to be getting with the Brain, which is fine. I don't know if I would necessarily have asked for anything else anyways. He comes with the beaker. Yes. He comes with the syringe. Yes. Comes with, of course, the smoking pipe, which is the one thing, the go-to thing I'm going to have. Best side to really have it. I'm going to have him displayed, of course, with the smoking pipe. As for the look of the face of Brain, decently detailed here from the folks over at NECA. Now, I did talk about the fact that the figure does have limited articulation. Now, if we go back to the ultimate Gremlins that we got before, you remember they have open and closing mouths. Really, a lot of the Gremlins too, the new batch Gremlins, don't have any articulation in the ears, nor do they have articulation in the mouth. So from that sense, Brain isn't really necessarily forfeiting any articulation, because just all the continued trend is that Gremlins 2 new batch figures tend not to have, again, a lot of articulation. So like what I'm saying with all my yammering is that you can't open his mouth. You can't. There's no joint or anything on the side. It has to, unfortunately, sacrifice it. I mean, really, too, if you wanted to have him with his mouth open and closing anyways, I don't think you'd be able to properly put the pipe in his mouth anyways. So I'm fine for the idea that they don't actually have any articulation in the mouth. The other thing that a lot of these newer figures have suffered from is that he doesn't have any ear articulation. But, again, judging by the fact he does have his spectacles glued to the tops of his ears, why would you want to be rotating those anyways? This is not like an Ultimate Gremlin where you want to change the look of it. I mean, he fits his look well. Why would he necessarily need to have articulated ears, and why he certainly would need to have articulated mouth? I'm thinking he's fine really to have neither one of them included. Again, the coloring is really good on this one. He's kind of more the browns and the yellows against the traditional greens and yellows that we're used to seeing with Gremlin. So right away, you already see there's a lot of difference in between this one and a regular Gremlin. I really like the pattern work that they've painted here on the tops of his ears, not to mention the middle brow section here, all the little additional spikes. I continue to say this. One thing that I like the most from NECA over the years has always been the Gremlin stuff. I always feel like they shine the most when it comes to paint. Like just the look of Brain alone with all the layers of color that they've added to the surface of the plastic. Like I said, it's some of NECA's best stuff that they're doing right now and continue to be doing over the years. For his outfit now, it consists of like a two-piece jacket. I don't know where he's actually shopping for a jacket of this size. He'd have to be probably buying from the kids department. But the jacket does match the pants. There is a Velcro piece, so of course you can actually open up the jacket if you wanted to see what he looked like with his blue t-shirt underneath. And again, I don't know why you would want to be opening that, but at least you can. You can. The material that they've used here is actually, I don't know if I would consider this twill. Is that a proper term to be using for describing a suit material? Twill? It's certainly more of a textured material. I think actually in the movie it's a little bit darker than what we get right here. And it certainly is a lot more textured. It's certainly from the way that the look of the material, I think actually is a little more noticeable on the figure than it is in the movie. I don't think the pattern work of this material is as extreme as what we get here, but still I like the look of the material that they actually use. It's a pretty soft material too. So when we get down to the articulation of Brain, you'll see in a second, there's really no limitations when it comes to what you can actually do with him. I don't know if it was an obvious thing or if just indirectly, the little point on the end of his elbow has poked through the elbows of both of his suit jacket. You can see it on both the sides. I think they've actually intentionally done that because even taking it out of the plastic prison, those little elbow points were already sticking out. I haven't really barely even moved the figure, but I would imagine even like bending the elbow, you probably will, if you haven't already gotten it, puncture the corner of the jacket. It's just one of those unavoidable things. Something also that I would imagine would be intentional, obviously, is the fact that they did add a little tail piece of the Gremlin that's sticking out the back of his pants. And again, you got some decent detailing done to the boots or the lower feet of the Gremlin. Flipping it up, you can actually see that he does have peg holes on the undersides. So if you did want to use a display stand, although knock on wood, it's not really wood that we're actually dealing with right now, but knock on this table, the figure actually has some decent joints on his ankles. They haven't developed any bit of looseness yet. For the articulation on Brain, it's pretty much the same standard articulation as what we've been getting with Gremlins, just minus the fact he doesn't have a ball joint on both the ears and minus the point that he doesn't actually have a point of articulation here in his lower jaw. But everything else counts. So his head is on quite a good ball joint, actually. You can actually move the head up. You can move it down. You can also rock it back and forth. And yeah, technically, you could rotate it all the way around. Although Gremlin, Brain or not, that would still kill him. The upper torso does seem limited. I mean, in fact, if you were to look at just a regular Gremlin, all of this would just be a standard molded body. No articulation really here. And more of the articulation would be in the elbow joints, the shoulders, I should say, the elbows, the hands. And of course the legs. So for like the arms, you can move the arms comfortably back and forth. Again, the softer material that they ended up using here doesn't limit the articulation at all when it comes to his arms. You can bend the elbows. It seems like there's only just a single hinge in the elbow, and the hands also rotate all the way around. In fact, I don't know if I can actually, I don't think I can roll it up completely. I shouldn't have committed to saying that. Yeah, I think it's only just a single hinge in the elbow. There seems like there could be one right there and one right there. I think it might be a double hinge on the elbow there. Again, nothing really happening here for the torso here for Brain, but at least you can move his legs out. Those are on ball joints. You can take the legs and move them forward and back. Those are also on ball joints. He does have a single hinge on the knee, and he does have, again, the articulation on the feet. You can rotate them back and forth this way and also hinge them up and down this way too. One thing, too, is that the hands are both soft and plastic in the fingers, and the toesies are also soft and plastic as well. Can't believe I just said toesies. One last time, just again to bring in some of those figures. Here's what he looked like next to Combat Gizmo. Even really like the Gremlins, too. The Mogwais, before they became Gremlins, they only had the articulation, again, granted, added to their ears. The newer Gremlins, I don't even think like Greta. Yeah, actually, Greta did have articulation in the ears. Brain, unfortunately, does give up that a little bit, but again, for what he sacrifices on articulation, I think he more than makes up for it in the paint and the fact that they actually managed to use a real fabric outfit. You could never, there's no way you could ever use a plastic jacket or pants for this. You have to go full fabric. And again, we're just freeing up a little bit of space while I'm talking away here just to bring in those other Gremlins. There's George. As I'm also bringing these in too, just a reminder that NECA is planning to re-release the Mogwai Gremlins. The only thing I think they're not planning to release, at least not that I've heard so far, are these guys, not these guys here. So, I mean, if you guys are interested, like I said, the Brain Gremlin is out now. He's going to be easily able to be found. Greta, I think, is also something you could still find in stores and online, but certainly when it comes to George, Lemmy, and Daffy, these guys, these blokes on the sides, you can probably have a little bit more of a harder time unless NECA does plan to re-release them, as they have already planned and announced to re-release the Gremlins again. At least the Mogwai Gremlins again. Being such a big Gremlins fan as I am, it's a bit sad the fact that we don't get as many Gremlins as we do anymore from NECA. It's no fault of the company. I mean, really, when you go back and look at the years of how many times they've released a Mogwai or a Gremlin of Gremlins and Gremlins 2, the new batch, they've pretty much covered off all the territory. Even like those characters that you barely only saw a glimpse of in the movie, NECA's already done that. So when it comes time to getting a new release, I mean, it's one that does stand out because there's not really any other figures at that time coming out. Brain was one figure that we just now recently gotten. I think before that, the last figure we got was Greta. There is also a San Diego Comic-Con version of a Bride Greta that I would love to get my hands on. I even mentioned in the review of Greta that I hope at some point NECA would consider doing a Bride Greta. And apparently that is the case. But we're not going to talk about Greta here. We're talking about Brain, though. We never really have gotten a true Brain that has been super detailed and superposable as the one that we're getting right here. NECA continues to show the amount of paintwork that's involved in just making these Gremlins figures. I mean, just to look at Brain, I mean, just to think of what the colors were when we were comparing him with Daffy, George, and Lemmy. Brain's got completely different color scheme, and all you got is these layers of different colors, different patterns, different speckles that they have to add that's unique to Brain and Brain alone. It continues to show why NECA is the kings of paint jobs when it comes to these figures. I mean, not only are you getting a nicely detailed looking Brain, but you get decent articulation, and you also get all the accessories that one would expect Brain to come included with, like the syringe, like the beaker of brain fluid, and also it comes included with the pipe. The pipe I'm probably just going to be displaying in his mouth. Why would I want to be displaying it in his hand? There's only going to be more of a risk of it falling out of his hand, rather instead having it displayed in his mouth. Now, yeah, the figure does have less articulation than if you were to compare it, say, to an Ultimate Gremlin. The Ultimate Gremlins are fine for what they are, and if you did want a more posable Gremlin that does have the means to open and close his mouth, go to the territory, I think, of the Ultimate Gremlins, because then you can get characters like the Gaming Gremlin, you can get the Streaker Gremlin, or you can just get like the OG Ultimate Gremlin. But when it comes to like the characters of the Gremlins to the new batch, you're kind of getting characters that have less granted articulation. A lot of them don't have any articulation in the jaws, which is fine. And Greta, while she did have articulation in the ears, Brain unfortunately doesn't have it. Whatever the reason was that NECA decided not to put ear articulation in for Brain, whether it just be a lot of just to do with the fact that he didn't want to have the problems with the glasses. Because, of course, if you're moving the ears around, you wouldn't be able to permanently attach the glasses. And I would much rather the latter of those glasses staying permanently in place because, yeah, you can't just simply rest a pair of glasses, small or not, on the bridge of a nose of a Gremlin. Have you ever done that in real life? I haven't done that in real life. Luckily, Gremlins aren't a real thing, but I would imagine it'd be probably quite difficult to sacrifice ear articulation and jaw articulation in favor of a super detailed Brain. I'd much, again, rather the latter, a super detailed looking Brain who has still decent articulation, and knock on wood, I don't have anything right now to just knock onto this tree over here. Knock on wood, the joints on Brain have still been pretty tight on this figure ever since I first opened him up. I've been kind of having them on display, moving around the joints, just sort of playing around with these figures. Because, of course, you can't just simply review these figures. You got to have a little bit of fun with them behind the scenes as well. And I got to say, like, I'm really, really happy with what they've done with Brain. Still don't think, like, the jacket and the pants are maybe as dark as they probably would have appeared in the movie. I think they're a little bit of a darker gray. But overall, again, a really nice looking Brain from the folks over at NECA. Now, again, I did pick this one up at Entertainment Earth. So if you guys are interested and would like to maybe pick up Brain, maybe haven't had any luck finding him in local stores, yes, you can click the link down below. Yes, it'll take you on over to Entertainment Earth's website. And yes, you can order Brain today. If you did enjoy this video, why not hit it with a like? If you're loving the content that you guys are seeing, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. And turn on the bell notification so you're going to get reminders every single time a new video pops up. Even though, of course, we have wrapped up the review for Brain Gremlin from NECA Toys, it's not to say that we're probably not going to... Okay, it's safe to say we are going to be looking at more Gremlins, more NECA reviews, not Gremlins. More NECA reviews lined up and coming your way for future videos. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.